So Triple Frontier is directed by J.C. Chandor and stars Ben Affleck, Charlie Hunnam, Oscar Isaac, Garrett Hedlund and Pedro Pascal as 5 ex-Special Forces soldiers who plan to rob a cocaine cartel boss of all of his cash at his house in the Amazon jungle area of the Triple Borders, Peru, Brazil and Colombia. However, problems arise after the plan is initiated. So I have to admit, I was really excited about this movie going into it because, for one, just look at the cast of this thing. I mean, it's ridiculous. The cast is so strong in this movie. You've got so many big movie stars like Ben Affleck, Oscar Isaac, Charlie Hunnam, Garrett Hedlund, and Pedro Pascal all in this movie as a unit. I was like, that is a brilliant idea. And just based on the cast alone, this movie just had me hyped. And then on top of that, this is a heist thriller, like a military heist thriller. It just seemed like all the right ingredients were coming into this movie to make it a perfect little soup for me to enjoy. And in the end, was it like that? Well, in a way, yes, but in other ways, and a lot of other ways, no, not at all. Like I mentioned, while the cast is absolutely tremendous, the overall feel for these characters is not very tasteful because they're very unlikable. Like, a lot of these characters are very salty, very childish, very bratty, and seem to only care about money, especially Ben Affleck's character. Like, his character is incredibly childish in this movie, which is kind of funny because he's the father of the group. But it's very funny to see that. And again, I found his character incredibly unbearable at times. Garrett Hedlund's character is very angsty and very over the top at times. And Oscar Isaac, who, you know, granted is very good in this movie, he has a bit more of an interesting thing going on with him because his character is a bit more deceiving at first, but then he kind of reveals that as to why as the movie goes on. And then you've got Pedro Pascal, who, again, kind of like Ben Affleck's character, becomes very unlikable, especially by the end. The only character who was actually likable in this movie was Charlie Hunnam. Like, his character was the only one who seemed like of decent sorts. Everyone else was kind of just in it for themselves, really, or had some kind of character point to them that just made them incredibly just horrible to watch. The film's biggest problem is that it relies on star power over characterization. This is a huge issue with this movie because obviously you've got a huge star-studded cast like this, and obviously you want to push that, but what the movie hopes the audience does is that it cares more about the actors rather than the characters, because there's really not much characterization going on within this film, because about 50 minutes into the film, me and my girlfriend were watching the movie, and we thought, we really don't know who these characters are, and we're 50 minutes into this movie, 50 minutes into this movie, and we still don't really know who these characters are. And that's because the movie doesn't really do a good job of giving them any actual character development. They just hope that, oh, it's Ben Affleck, it's Oscar Isaac, people will like that. Like, the only characters who really get a little bit of characterization is Ben Affleck with his daughter, and then you also have Oscar Isaac, who has this woman who he's kind of entangled with, but she's kind of a part of the plot anyway, so that's kind of irrelevant. But then you've got like Charlie Hunnam and Garrett Hedlund, who really have nothing other than the fact that you're told they're brothers, and Pedro Pascal has one line about his family, and that's literally it. Like, this movie has no characterization outside of those little moments, and again, the movie rather would focus on the fact that, oh, look at these star-studded actors we have, focus on that rather focus on the actual characters themselves. Now, this movie does have a lot of really good action. You know, for a Netflix movie, this was really impressive for the action. I thought it was really well handled, really well shot. Like, the movie's camera work is actually really impressive. I was really actually quite impressed with all the camera work, not only just in terms of the big action sequences, but the way the camera moves just around certain scenes is actually really slick looking, really smooth. And the action, although there's not as much action as I think maybe some people may think there will be, this is a bit more of a heist thriller more than a heist action film. The action, when it's there, is very impressive and very entertaining to watch indeed. Also, what struck me immediately about this movie when I started watching it is, this is a really good looking movie. Like, it looks really crisp, really clean, the colour grading's really great, and I think it just looks a lot more, you know, for a movie like this that deals with the drug cartels and in places like Colombia, you know, I was expecting a bit more of a washed out, grainy kind of look to the movie, kind of like, you know, something like Sicario. I mean, granted, I love Sicario, and that colour grading works brilliantly for that movie, but I just thought that's what we were going to get here, so it was quite a surprise to actually see all these bright colours brought into the movie, and it just added a bit more life to it, and I think it actually breathed quite a bit of new kind of energy into the movie because of those bright and more deep colours that it was able to kind of just engross me in the world a little bit more, which I always appreciate. However, the movie's just really inconsistent, and again, this really comes down to the characters, because the characters kind of flip back and forth on a dime with their motivations, especially Ben Affleck's character, who, you know, as I mentioned before, is so heavily influenced by the money, and then at a point later on, he's just burning money for no reason. So it's kind of like, you know, it kind of like these characters just change their tune constantly and kind of flip back and forth on their own motives. And I don't know if that's supposed to be intentional to the point where it's like, oh, you know, these stakes are so high that we need to make sure that to show that these characters are they just don't know what to do. But it didn't come across that way. Like I said, it just came across incredibly inconsistent, and that comes down to the script as well. The script is incredibly shoddy in this movie, and it kind of, not only does it paint the characters unlikable, like I said, but it just makes everything really inconsistent and just not entertaining to watch. Overall, I enjoyed Triple Frontier for what it was, but it was a bit of a disappointment. I think that the movie, you know, with a star power cast like this, although the cast do a good job with what they are given, again, it's just the movie doesn't focus on the characters. It just says, right, we have these actors, and, you know, they might as well have not even given the characters names. They might as well have just said, oh, look, it's Ben, Pedro, blah, 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 blah. They shouldn't have even given them names, because at the end of the day, these are just actors with no actual character, because again, they just don't do any characterization or any character development in the movie to actually make you care about them. So when, you know, when things are happening to them and when there's actual stakes involved, you just don't really care. And again, the movie's really inconsistent. Now, there are good parts to it. Like I said, the action is fun. It's a very entertaining movie to watch. I was never bored watching this movie. And again, it's a very good looking film, and the camera work's very good and things like that. I think the direction overall is pretty good, but it's just overall a bit sloppy and it's a bit rough around the edges to the point where you kind of walk away from it going, that could have been so much more. So have you guys seen Triple Frontier? If you have, make sure to let me know all your thoughts about it in the comment section down below. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Let's have a conversation about this movie in the comment section down below. And as always, guys, if you want to see more movie reviews from me, be sure to subscribe, and I hope to see you guys again next time.